Good morning, everybody. So my name is Sau-Wan Lai of Wheeler Lai Chartered Surveyors, and we are commercial property advisors, valuers and agents. And I just want to give you an overview of the services we provide. If those of you who attend weekly will know, but for the benefit of our visitors. So we are broadly 4 services in commercial property. We carry out professional advice, so that would be your rent reviews, your lease renewals for business owners and occupiers. So we help landlords and tenants in their business premises. There are 2 of us in our business, so myself and Rebecca Wheeler, and we are also both valuers. So we are able to provide valuations for commercial properties in terms of their freehold values or their rental values. And we also provide valuations for third parties and professionals. So for example, solicitors might approach us to carry out valuation, or financial advisors or mortgage advisors. We are also commercial property managers, so we help either a landlord with one single property or a portfolio of properties, and we are also, in terms of location, I'm based in Waterlooville and my business partner's on the Isle of Wight, and we kind of cover the south coast. And we have recently taken on a small portfolio of properties on the Isle of Wight to manage on behalf of a client who's actually based, I believe, in Wales. So, you know, depending where our clients come from, it's not a problem if obviously their properties are in our locality. And finally, we also deal with commercial property agency, which is your lettings, sales, and we also help people kind of acquire their properties as well. And I thought I'd just focus down today on kind of the letting side of things from a tenant's perspective. So what I mean is, I'm sure you know, as business owners, as well as possibly business occupiers, you have business premises, or you know someone who might be looking to take up premises. Like Di recently took up her own premises, and you think, okay, I've got a business, I actually want to be somewhere, but maybe you know your business, but actually you don't know how to go about getting a premises, and sometimes you think that you might need guidance, and that's where we would come in. So you have a requirement, you can come and instruct us and say, I'm looking for 1,500 square foot office space for my business. I have a budget of between £10,000 and £15,000 per annum, and I need to be around Petersfield, Canfield, or I don't want to go over that far, you know, I have a radius, and that's where I want to focus on. So we can help you in that respect and help you locate premises and carry out negotiations with a landlord. And one of the things we like to advise people is, you might think you can do it yourself, and sometimes that's a false economy because you don't necessarily know what you're getting into, and sometimes people, as I say, you don't know what you don't know, whereas we would hopefully come in and tell you the pitfalls and what we would do as day-to-day activities for us might not seem obvious to somebody else. And certainly when it comes to property, as business owners, I'm sure you do your own due diligence anyway, but certainly, you know, research and location and know where your customers are is quite important. And that leads on to, you found your ideal premises, and then we would go on to what would be called heads of terms, which is basically kind of, I suppose, the skeleton of the framework for a solicitor to draw up the lease. So before racking up solicitors' fees, we provide a document that gives an idea of what you need to have included, so that it's crystal clear to both parties what you're signing up for. So if anyone has an idea of what you might be concerned about when you rent a premises, what might kind of come to your mind that you'd like to know about? Anybody want to make any suggestions?
Who needs to insure the building?
Yep, insurance. Who covers insurance? Very important.
Maintenance?
Maintenance, exactly that. So repairing obligations, that's something that you need to be concerned about. potentially a lot of people might encounter residential letting, they don't always encounter commercial letting, and the repairing obligations are very different on commercial properties. For example, a residential property, the landlords are usually responsible for repairs and maintenance, whereas on a commercial property, it's usually down to the tenant, so you need to know what you're signing up for. And just a few more which I will go through on the heads of tax. So I was racking my brain to think, what property would people think about? And I couldn't think of any kind of magnificent buildings. So I thought, Annie Jones, one of our new favourite meeting places. So if we were looking at Annie Jones as a potential occupational meeting space, office space, community space, we would find a venue and draw up the heads of terms. So we include in the document, it might be too small, the important points are the parties, who is taking on the contract. So we know the landlord is the person who owns the building, but the tenant, you might want to take it as an individual, or you might want to take it as a company. And there are usually pros and cons for either, but for a landlord's perspective, they would usually like it to be a personal name, only because when you think of letting a property, you have to weigh up risks. And for a landlord, letting to a company might appear more risky in terms of if everything goes wrong, who are they kind of chasing for the rent arrears, obligation to repair and so forth. So those are important factors to put into the document, and those will be going into the lease, which is the contract for the property. And the other points we'd go to is exactly what you're taking on. So Annie Jones is a big building. Would you be taking on the whole building or just a part of it? So saying that is important, and how much rent you would want to pay. And a lot of people they market a property, that's the ideal rent, but that can always be negotiated and it doesn't have to be the final rent. So sometimes you can say, okay, this looks like it needs a bit of work, I'd like to pay a lower rent. And that's all down to negotiations. As if someone doesn't have someone to advise them like ourselves, they might just go in, sign up at what would be the quoting rent, and lose out on opportunities to save themselves costs. Other things to consider is what I've said before about if a property needs work, you might want to request rent-free. So that enables you to carry out some fit-out, so that you're not expected to pay rent and then costs to the business of decoration, so that helps you with your cash flow. Other things to consider are, as I said, repairs. If it's repairing obligations to yourself, or you can try and limit that with a photographic schedule, which is basically something that records the condition of the property, so that when you return it to the landlord, it's going to be no better than what you've taken it up as. And Annie Jones is a pub, but sometimes you might want to change the use of the property. So if you want, a community clinic or shop, a centre to meet up, then that might need a change of use. That'd be a planning application. And someone like ourselves can advise potential business occupiers of what use their business might need to be classed into. And just for example, Di is a health clinic, and there used to be a separate class for that, but actually they've changed it and had an overhaul of the planning system, and that has become into the same class as a shop. So it makes movement of businesses a lot easier for vacant properties. And other things to consider, as Lucy said, was insurance, to make sure you know who's paying insurance. It's usually the tenant, but it can be that the landlord pays it and you pay it back, because you're responsible for the building's insurance to make sure it's covered. And so on to us, we have been around since 2018. There's between us about 35 years experience now, And I've been a chartered surveyor for 16 years, ignore the 20, and that Rebecca's been for 20 years. And we share our presentations, so that's where that's come from, for business efficiencies. And we want to help business owners and occupiers in the South Coast, and we don't just give commercial property advice, we like to connect and facilitate businesses. So you know us, you'll get to know our network, and we like to refer people to our businesses, business friends, so that we help people in all aspects of their business. So that's me, what I do, and if anyone has any questions.